Welcome back to the Film Freak Movie Interview. Leo Quinones with you, riding shotgun, the chef himself, El Jefe, Jon Favreau. Jon, it's been amazing having you here. I want to ask you about sexual foreplay, if I may.
Okay. My specialty?
There's a lot of ways to do it. There's toys.
Well, I only know one.
There's booze.
Cooking.
Yeah. There's a scene with a damsel, I don't know, Scarlett Johansson. Were her tattoos real?
No.
Because that was another smoking hot level.
She put a couple little tattoos, a couple little star tattoos on her shoulders, boy, that poke out in her sleeveless dress, and she's got like a nice Betty Page brunette bang haircut. Oh man, she looked really, really good. I've never seen her look like that, but she looked like they really put her together nice for the movie.
Some guys have to, take someone out, wine them and dine them, but a chef uses his main talent. And what I remember most on my dying day, if someone asks me about chef, I'm going to remember the sizzle of garlic. My girlfriend only makes me put like 1 teaspoon of olive oil.
Yes.
Not too much. That's too much. Not you.
No, Roy Choi was like Cyrano de Bergerac in that scene. When I'm cooking Scarlett comes by my house and I cook her a nice meal of pasta agliole. And, it's a love scene because you're cross-cutting between the frying pan that I'm cooking this pasta dish and Scarlett watching in anticipation. Oh. And it was great. It was great because it just showed you the power. And by the way, if ever like a chef, like I know all these chefs, in the middle of whatever I'm doing, guy, girl, doesn't matter. They're like, I want to try out a new dish on you. Do you want to stop by the restaurant or you want to come over? I'm there. Like you're not going to miss it. It's like watching, it's like watching the corpse flower open once every 7 years. It's this force of nature.
Yeah.
And so so you have this guy who's cooking, but when you watch a chef cook, and I think what we captured well is everything that goes into the pan, every movement, there's efficiency, there's a gentleness, there's a choreography to it. And watching the alchemy of the white slices of garlic start to turn golden, and right before they burn and get bitter, you throw in the pasta. And now, while you're doing that, you're chiffonading the Italian parsley, and you're turning it into like a green dust. And that dust hits the pasta, and then you throw a little bit of acid with the half of a lemon on it, and then you throw just a little bit of dried red pepper. Right? And as you're doing that and you serve it with a French fork and you twist it around it so it becomes like a little beehive of deliciousness, and you just drop that into a bowl and you hand it over, and all of a sudden you've done this whole ritual that's all geared towards this moment and this one little, 6-ounce serving of pasta. And you hand them a fork, you hand them a rag, and they try it, and it is a magical connection. When a chef has prepared something, you watch them, and they give it to you, and there's just one moment when it's perfect. That's a big thing with being a chef. You could taste good food, and it comes in a paper bag from carry-out from someplace, and it gets delivered. A chef cringes at that. But if they make a piece of sushi, you have to eat it. David Chang once said, even if you sit at the table in a sushi restaurant, it's bad. You have to sit at the bar because that 2 degrees that rice drops ruins the dish. So a real chef, it's about a moment, a temperature, and everything is geared around that experience that they are presenting to you. And hopefully we captured some of that when I'm cooking for Scarlett.
When Carl Casper has a pan in his hand, it seems like it's too much oil and it seems like it's too much garlic, but it's just the right amount.
Yeah.
That, to me, was a personification of food porn right there.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it was the sex and the food were melded together perfectly.
It is, because you know why they call it that, I think, is because it's actually creating a physical response as you're watching it. Your mouth is watering. You're getting hungry. Your stomach's growling. You're starting you're pining for that food. And I can't tell you how many tweets I get. Like, I got out, I went home and made a grilled cheese sandwich in my dorm room. We look for any place that sold a Cuban sandwich. Like, there is an urgency when you get out of this to either cook something, and which is I think what I would encourage. And we try to stick. We did a food and wine story. Even the CD has recipes from the film. It's not hard. There aren't a lot of ingredients in most of the stuff. But what's hard is that you have to pay close attention to what you're doing and just cook it perfectly and not walk away from the stove. even if it's a grilled cheese sandwich, you stand over there and you hover over it and you make sure you take it right to the point where it's almost burnt, and that's the moment you pull it off. You know,
it worked absolutely fantastic. Okay, take me to the barbecue scene, Austin,
Franklin.
Texas.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
That's ridiculous.
There's not a special effect shot you can do. You just should. Hey, here's some meat.
That's
Great.
the trick. You could spend. You're right. You could spend $7 million on a CGI battle sequence, and you won't get as deep of a response from the audience as when Aaron Franklin opens up that smoker and you see those 4 perfect briskets there with just that caramelized bark on the outside. And it's amazing because it's over an hour into the film when you see this barbecue brisket and the crowd lets out this sad moan because now they've gotten hungry from watching the whole movie, and here they are on this road trip. And those are real briskets he was really cooking. And we were afraid because he sells out. This is Franklin Barbecue in Austin. People line up from early in the morning with lawn chairs and umbrellas waiting for this food. And it sells out every day at lunch. And so we were hoping, we were driving into town to film that one day in Austin. We said, you got to save us some briskets for the shoot. Yeah, no problem, no problem. And when we got there, we were like biting our nails to see if he had sold out. And he saved us those 4 briskets. And when he cuts into those briskets with that pocket knife and we start eating that.
You have the first bite.
I do. And it was of the flat. It was cut against the grain. It was all that bark and that smoke ring. And I'm telling you, and that brisket, by the way, is salt, pepper, and meat. That's all there is in the ingredients. But it's cooked overnight, 12 hours, 14 hours, Texas hardwood. They watch that thing. They cook it at like 250 degrees all night. And so by the time it comes off, that bark is caramelized. There's all these subtle layers of flavor that just comes from the chemistry of the meat cooking with the smoke. And it is as tender as any piece of sushi. And you took the cheapest cut of meat and you make it into the most delicious flavor, the most tender cut. And that's, to me, that's the magic of being a chef.
Let's go into the restaurant where Carl Casper has a meltdown that ultimately goes viral. You seem to me like a pretty even keel guy.
Yeah.
If you have so many people on an Iron Man set, you know, do you ever lose your cool? Do you ever get to that level?
No, I really try not to, and I don't. Earlier in my career, you know, I think as a director, starting to lose it a little bit is seen as like maybe a leadership tactic. I never really did it. It's like a coach. I'm more like a Phil Jackson. I try to be more like a Phil Jackson, where talk to them, connect with them, get the most out of your players. But there are people who are like Bobby Knight who, you know, want to throw chairs. But all of it, I find with directors or people in leadership positions, it's to get the most out of your crew, whether it's a basketball team, a kitchen staff, or movie set. As I get older, you realize that, to me, it's all wasted, bad, negative energy. And you're always better off taking a moment. I can't think of any situation, unless it's life-threatening, where losing it is a smarter choice than keeping your cool. But in the chef world, they don't have they're people who used to being in the back of the house. So their temperament is much more, informs their behavior much more, especially when it comes to like social media. So if somebody challenges a chef and starts telling them off on a website, on a Yelp review, a chef will come right back at them and tell them they don't know what the hell they're talking about, because everybody's a reviewer now. Now, when it's a good reviewer, they don't do it because they respect a guy like that. But if somebody says, I waited in line and I didn't like what I got and this had too much this and that person is hurting your business, a chef will pick up their phone and tweet and write a message back, and then it turns into something that escalates. And that becomes the theater of the food blog and the world of the chef. So what I wanted to do in the film was really show what happens to the chefs as opposed to reflecting what my experience has been. But I could see what the urge is when you look on Twitter and somebody says something mean to you. You wish you could go right to them and say, you know, say it to my face. Yeah. You
never had that with your film work? Somebody get under your skin?
Oh, always, you know, but you have to make your skin thicker. It's not their fault. It's like going to a bathroom wall and reading something and getting mad at the bathroom wall. Our generation has a tough time with it because it's new. My kids don't think of it that way. they get a laugh out of what they see written on the internet. But for us, if somebody writes something bad about you, it still feels like they're saying it to your face. But that's not the culture of the online community. It's not that way.
The online community. MJ Anthony, who plays, of course, Percy, he teaches his 42-year-old dad.
Right. 42 to 47 is up for discussion. But someone in the mid, look, we call that the mid-40s. Is 47 still mid-40s?
Early 40s, I would say. He really schooled you, and it was a really nice entrance into the world. Even as you and Oliver Platt, as you were berating him with the molten fudge cake, you can see a phone here and a phone there, and
taking pictures.
You already know it's out there. Yeah. So talk about how Twitter became a character, and ultimately, Jon, how social media, I think we're at Google, I think you've been all over, getting the reach out with a small film with such a global reach.
Yeah. So there's a lot of tweeting going back and forth, and we came up with a really nice graphic display to show the tweeting, because I want Twitter such a big part of, well, certainly the food truck world, but really of our culture. And just like in Swingers, you remember, there was the answering machine was a big deal. Mm-hmm. That was kind of the technology of the day that I just used as a story device. And Twitter and Facebook and YouTube, I just included because that seemed like what our culture has. I didn't want to limit myself, hoping that they would give me permission to use their stuff. And all of them were very good. Normally when you deal with a brand, they have a lot of control over what you say. They want to have a marketing partnership. Twitter, Google, all of them were very cool. They're like, just show our brand accurately. Mm-hmm. And, you don't have to give us any money, but we're not going to give you any money, and just get the logo right. And don't depict the product as something it's not. Mm-hmm. And they gave us complete freedom to use Twitter as a tool, and Facebook and YouTube as a tool to tell our story. And I think that's what makes it feel much more authentic and genuine, because I am on Twitter. You don't want to make up a fake Twitter. It just feels like a movie then. This way, the texture of it feels real. And the idea that the father never even knew how to log on to Twitter, and the kid gets him an account, and of course he puts his foot in his mouth right off the bat in a very public way. But the kid's like a wizard, even at 10 years old. And I see that with my own kids. They have the first thing is like, keep your kid away from the computer. They don't know they're going to be targeted. They don't being tricked. Your kid is 10 times more savvy than you'll ever be at sniffing out who's above board and who they could talk to and share what with. As long as you tell them, to be careful, they know how to be careful. Yeah.
When you're 42, you used to use an encyclopedia.
Yeah.
Now they have instant access, so they must be way smarter than when we were kids.
Yeah, it's a totally different thing now, and the kids are all right. I like the kids. The kids are going to make mistakes. The problem is that when they make mistakes like I made and you made, it's going to be much more public. Us, you could sort of get away from your embarrassing moments. But now everything's documented, and everything is cached on servers. And so if somebody tweets something in a weak moment, that's going to haunt them. Or they put something on their Facebook page, it might keep them from getting a job when they go out there in the job market. But this is the growing pains of the digital age, and I think it's not going away. And I think it makes things better. It's helped the food world. It's created foodies out of people who wouldn't normally be.
Ramsey Michel. Mm-hmm. Is there a little ulterior about that name?
The critic?
Yeah.
Why? Because of
Michel Gordon Ramsay.
Michel is French.
Isn't there a famous?
No.
I think Michel Richard.
Maybe. Or Michelin, maybe. Maybe subconsciously there is. And Gordon Ramsay, who's a chef, who is a volatile character, who also I enjoy watching. Gordon Ramsay has an old show called Boiling Point from the BBC.
I remember.
That was boy, I looked at that. That gave me a lot of insight into what goes on with the pressures of a chef who's that's the beginning of the whole celebrity chef thing. Mm-hmm. And here he was being documented. So he's a fascinating guy. I like watching him.
And that's why this had to be an R-rated film, Chef.
Yeah, it had to be an R-rated film because, I was talking to, again, David Chang was like, when he said to me, when I see there's a movie about restaurants and the kitchen and chefs and it's PG, I know it's bull, because kitchens are R-rated places. And the big promise I had made to Roy Choi when he agreed to help me for, again, we didn't have a lot of money on this. This was a real labor of love for me and for him. When he chose to you know, leave his restaurant for nights when we're shooting to come to the set and help me and come up with menus for all this stuff and oversee everything. He said, the one thing I want is to get the food world right. Hollywood movies rarely get it right, and it deserves it. And so I dedicated myself to getting the accuracy, and part of that was the language, and part of the, and you can't do that in a big studio film. So thankfully this is a smaller film because it's a movie that's an R because we say the F word more than once. But I think it's more appropriate for my kids than a lot of the PG-13 movies I see with a lot of violence and things. So it's an R, like King's Speech is an R, you know, or like Little Miss Sunshine's an R.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like a family R movie, which is not a good business model.
I'll tell you something. There's so many great layers to Chef. You can pick out what you want, but there's definitely something for everybody. And you know, like you did this outside the studio system.
Yeah.
This program is outside
sure.
the studio system.
Well,
so thank you for coming in.
Well, that's what's great about, honestly, you know, whether it's podcasts or whether it's radio shows or whether it's food trucks or whether it's people making their own movies and putting them up on YouTube and self-distributing, there's an opportunity to get a sincere voice out there. The trick is connecting with the people who are going to enjoy it and figuring out a way to get that together. And I feel that happening. And so you're seeing pop-up restaurants, you're seeing people playing their guitar on and doing a video of it and getting signed to deals, or stand-up comics like Louis C.K. posting his own concert footage up on a site and charging $5 and circumventing all the gatekeepers in the system and potentially creating a much more sincere interaction between people. And to me, it's captured a little bit of it. And the fairy tale, honestly, of this movie is there's no billboards for this film. You're not fighting your way. The handful of commercials that we have now can't fight with the big movies. What's happening is because of social media and word of mouth, we're in a few theaters in every city, and we're filling those theaters, and that's why we're spreading. And that's why we went from 6 theaters to 70 to 500. And so that's all about word of mouth, and it's just like the food truck in the film. So it's really encouraging that there's an opportunity here for people to reach out and speak and say, I'm going to seek out stuff, films and content that speaks to me. And this new phenomenon allows for that in all these different platforms.
I know my dad, who isn't here anymore, who used to cook, like the Carl Casper, you know, for the family. And your dad, God bless him, who you used to scrub the bottom of the boat with. Yeah. Do you think? Well,
my dad's still alive, so no condolences. My grandmother.
What did he say?
What did he say when
he saw? What was his review?
Oh, he loves it. He loves the movie, and it actually causes us to be closer. As I say, like this is what I felt like when I was growing up with you. Now, thankfully, we all have the opportunity, if we're lucky enough to live many years, that you become a better person. You could change who you are. And God knows I become better every day at being a dad. It takes a while to learn to be a dad, to be a husband, to be a director, you know, and life's about learning and growing. It's not like it stops when you get your job or you have your kid. That's the beginning. And it's about rededicating yourself. And my dad, I'm proud to say, has gone through the same growth. And he had, that generation had the kids young. I would hate to see what type of dad I would have been if I had my kids when I was in my early 20s. I was a kid. And so thankfully he's been healthy and around long enough to grow into a great dad and an even better grandpa. So I think he's my biggest proponent. He walks around. He makes me sign a lot of stuff for auctions and gifts, and he'll every once in a while call me from a bar at night to prove that I'm really his son, and hand me over to the bartender or somebody he's drinking with.
Get out of here! Yeah, he's not your son.
Exactly. Yeah, and he's waking me up on the West Coast. I just tucked in the kids, Dad. What's going on? So anyway, so it's it's been a great experience with bringing me and my kids honestly together. And my kids now, my 12-year-old wants some chef's clogs, and I've been cooking stir fry with him, and my little 7-year-old girl makes mirepoix, so the bug's biting them through the film. And what's nice about cooking and eating and the type of food that this movie's about is about stopping everything else you're doing to focus on each other and the thing you're dealing with and the food, and looking away from the screens and the phones for a second and just sharing a moment. And I think that that's a good lesson, and it seems like it's in doubt for this generation because of technology, but I think every generation feels that way.
Wow. Jon, Thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah, great.
You know,
Great talking to you. This was fun.
the movie is called Chef, written, directed, starring Jon Favreau. You got Sofia Vergara, Dustin Hoffman, John Leguizamo, MJ Anthony,
Scarlett.
Bobby
Cannavale, yeah.
and
Oliver Platt and Robert Downey Jr., Scarlett Johansson. We got Murderers Row. We got a good lineup. It's a dream team.
do one of these every 5 years, will you?
I wish, I would do one. If I could come up with a script, this was the best. This movie was so much fun for me. I wish I could come up with it, but I envy those filmmakers that could come up with a script every year or two like this. But, it takes a while. But I'd love to again. Hopefully an idea will hit me.
Come back.
Thank you.
BuyChefTickets.com. That's BuyChefTickets.com. Do not, I said this in the beginning, don't walk, run to see Chef. You'll leave happy and hungry. Jon Favreau, thanks again.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.